Hey guys, Carl from Purple Misplaced. Today I'm taking a preview look at a prototype copy of Emerald Echoes, the newest puzzletale box from PostCurious Games and designers Rita, Orlov, and Chelsea Stark, with a narrative written by Lauren Bello, whose name you might recognize from her previous work on games like Morrison Game Factory and Threads of Fate, also from PostCurious, but who's also apparently, I've done some research while doing this video, she's also a writer on TV shows like Foundation and The Sandman, which makes me even more excited to see a name like hers on this box. If you don't know PostCurious makes these very narrative heavy, sort of intense escape room in a box style games that I've been a very big fan of, and this is actually the first sort of narrative sequel that they've ever done, this being a sequel to one of their earlier games, the Emerald Flame, which I was a big fan of, so I'm very excited to be able to take a look at this. Now, disclaimer, because this is a preview of a prototype copy, I was given advance access to this game by the publisher, but as always, I will do my best to give you my own honest opinion on the game. With that said, let's head down to the table to get a quick look at what's inside the box and what's inside the first package of the box, and then I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think about the entire experience. All right, so here we have Emerald Echoes, a puzzle tale, the sequel to the Emerald Flame. This is the first time I'm going to be opening this box, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the same experience I get opening the box, sort of reading to find out what's going on, then looking into my sort of first set of puzzles, and I will stop there before solving anything so as not to spoil anything at all inside this box. So let's go ahead with that said and open up the box. And right away we see this paper here that says start here. All right, introduction. Emerald Echoes is a narrative tabletop puzzle adventure that can be played solo or cooperatively as a group. You follow the correspondence of two academics as they investigate recently unearthed documents and artifacts from the 15th century. Emerald Echoes is a narrative sequel to the Emerald Flame, but you don't need to have played the Emerald Flame to enjoy this game. I have played, so I'm even more excited to see the continuation. It says gameplay. The game is comprised of 4 chapter envelopes that should be played sequentially. Within each envelope, there are some unlabeled items, along with emerald green puzzle folders that are labeled numerically in the order they should be solved. This is new. I've never seen something like this from PostCurious before, with the sort of organized order to things. There are also dark blue folders to start and end each chapter. They don't contain any puzzles, but should be opened as part of the same numerical sequence. Each green puzzle folder contains at least one written document to investigate. Use it as a jumping off point as you piece together which items are needed to solve the puzzle. Within each puzzle folder is also a pocket with a card labeled analysis. If you get stuck and need a nudge in the right direction, slowly slide out the card until you reach the bottom of the message bubble. Then read the hint inside that bubble. If you need another hint, pull it out further until you have new information that helps you continue solving. So this is sort of the reasoning, I think, behind this new system, is they've gone completely offline. It used to be the hint system was an online thing. They're no longer using, at least for this game, the online hint system. It says some analysis cards are double-sided. To avoid spoilers, always finish reading side A before moving to side B, and before turning it over, make sure to slide the card back in. Once you have the right answer, once you think you have the right answer to a puzzle, read through the entire analysis card. The final segment always reveals the solution. After confirming the solution, you can move on to the next folder in the sequence. Be sure not to open the next folder until you've confirmed your solution. So this is new too. It used to be that you'd sort of type your solution into a system online or send it to somebody as an email or what have you. In this case, everything is going to be based on these cards. So tips tell me to make sure to always examine both sides of a document. Solutions will take the form of an English word or phrase. No outside knowledge or internet access is needed. This is new for this one. Within an envelope, some items may be used for more than one puzzle, but no items are used across multiple envelopes. That's not always been the case for PostCurious either. Keep a pencil and scrap paper for notes. If you wish to preserve the original components, tracing paper is included. Take your time. It's intended to be played over multiple sessions. There are 13 puzzle folders, taking breaks at any point. And there are digital transcripts of the written materials as well as reset instructions online. So it says to begin playing, open the envelope labeled February 1st and read through the contents of folder 10. All right, so here is that envelope marked February 1st. Enter departmental delivery. Cross out entire line when received and reused until all lines are full. February 1st, delivered to AD, Department Archives, sent by ML. I will open that in just a second. I just kind of want to see what else is in the box. We've got a March 2nd. Wow, that's heavy. March 2nd, October 3rd. I do love the way that all of these look differently. And this bottom one here, it is a little bit thicker, is upside down. It says Speedy's Messenger Service, December 4th. So there are 4 large packages in here, but all I'm going to show you is in here, and most specifically that first sort of puzzle. So let's go ahead and open that up, getting everything else off the screen. All right, so opening that up. Ooh, they are Velcro. I like that. They used to be those sort of wrappy strings. So this may be a new direction, which makes me happy. Ooh, we've got a little velveteen baggie tied nice and tight. Let me get this off screen so I don't waste your time watching me open it. And then inside that baggie we've got, ooh, some kind of code for sure. I like it. With some letters on the back. Let me show it to you so you can see what it looks like. Cool. Also, ooh, some kind of metal coin in there, which is really cool. How it's used, I don't know yet, but regardless, the component itself is very cool. I love it. We've got a box of what look to be little punch board things that probably make a puzzle of some kind. Let's open that up so you can see a little bit better. And yeah, you can see there are all these sort of tiles that are probably going to puzzle together. I'm not playing the game right now, so I just want to show you they are all black on the back. So here's that blue envelope that it was talking about before, and it does say that I'm supposed to read these in order. So that is 1.0, so we are going to start there. And we were told to start with that in the instructions as well. So let's go ahead and open that. I'm going to actually open the blue one and the green one so that you can see, actually before I do that, there are some other things here at the bottom. Some kind of gizmo that's really interesting. Sort of a, what do you call those? Rube Goldberg device. A list of goods and their locations. Oh, that's stapled. Or connected in some way at least, or not. Patrons of the alchemical arts. Hey, wait a minute. Am I Baron Rankamp? I think it's a little bit unlikely that there's another Rankamp that was inspired by, considering some of these other, for example here, Mr. Radcliffe is probably board game Mr. Radcliffe. Some other names in there you might recognize, but that's fun to see my name pop up. And sure enough, collector of violet dies and antlers. Guess what? I am a purple moose. Well done. Well played. That's fun. All right, we got a list of cities with warehouse numbered locations. Some symbols with keys on the back. All right. Ooh, this is kind of cool. Some kind of colorful map of some kind. Nothing on the back of that one. Here's the tracing paper they mentioned before in the instructions. Aha, okay, so this is clearly where those tiles are meant to be laid on top of. I will be doing that later, but not on screen, but that's a cool document. But anyway, that is all of these sort of non-folder stuff in here. We've got 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and there, as you can see, they all have these analysis sticking out. 1.5, and then 1.6 is another sort of blue end cap story. So let's go ahead and open 1.0, and we'll see how the rest of it plays out. It's a folder. All right. Says, M, I dreamt about you last night. You came to me with your soft dark hair pulled back and a light in your eyes. And you told me you would free me from my father. You laid your hand on mine, a benediction, and I closed my eyes, feeling my throat tighten. Before you, I had not known I needed to be freed. In my dream, you drew me outside and we walked along the riverbank. You spoke to me of things I'd never imagined, the trade routes you followed, the merchants you befriended, All the while you strode briskly like a man, and I followed you eagerly, marveling at the world that seemed yours for the taking. And then I awoke and remembered everything that has come to pass. You reached inside the quiet closet of my heart and opened me up to the world. We whispered vows to each other in the meadow, tied wildflowers like rings around our fingers, and then you killed my father. M. I went to the cathedral to pray today. I remember my father taking me there as a child. I would kneel on hard tile, clasping my hands, trying to be the image of filial piety. He would leave me and ascend to his place on the dais, and I would study him. His lips as he murmured in Latin, his hands as he crossed himself, the eyes of his parishioners filled with worship. Everything he touched was consecrated. He was like the sun to me, and I was content to bask in his light. Even years later, when he stood at the head of the crowd casting precious books into the fire, I could not bring myself to feel as you felt. You spoke urgently to me of his hunger for power, power that no single man should wield, and I pretended to agree with you. But when I turned over the notion of this power in my heart, I secretly felt not fear, but pride. Deep within, I still thought with a child's mind and felt with a child's heart. I suppose that was our undoing. Now I live a quiet life in the abbey. I pray and copy liturgical texts and observe the customary fasts, and the abbess smiles that I am living the life my father would have wanted. And on a few rare nights when my heart fills with words I dare not speak, I walk alone in the orchard and write these letters to a lover who will never read them. A lover I spurned in loyalty to a man who wished to become a god. Wherever you are, M, I hope you understand. I am no longer a child. I would do things differently now. My hand trembles as I write this. A peasant girl came to me today with a note, which she asked me to read to her. It was a small scrap, unsigned, containing instructions for a soothing poultice. It was written in your hand. I could hear nothing but my own breath. Dimly, I recall asking her who had given her the note. Her voice came to me as if from a distance. I was on my feet then, following her to the manservant who had desired the poultice for his master, questioning him urgently until, stammering with alarm, for what did a nun wish to know of such things, he at last told me of the great alchemist of the north. Speaker of 5 tongues, friend of 7 guilds, she had established a laboratory deep in Scandinavia, hidden from those who would use her arts to grasp for power. In her wisdom, she used her craft to conceal the path to her workshop. Only the poor and the sick were permitted to know the way. Her name he did not know, but her manner he did, quick-tempered, dark-haired, eternally unafraid. And here, M, I confounded the man, for I wept. I wept for your absence. I wept for the years lost, and in truth, some part of me wept for the life I knew I must leave behind. For I must go. I must break the vows I made before God and set aside the veil. The life of the abbey is no longer mine, if it ever was. I was only half alive before you came to me and called my name, and I will be only half alive if I stay, knowing where you are. Marketa, I am coming. All right, so we also see this text thread here. Is that a single? No, that's 2 pieces. So we've got 1A. Hey, what's this box you left on my desk? Sorry, my bad. It's something I found in the archives behind a shelf. I was on my way to ask the big guy about it when my coffee spilled, so I had to set it down. I'll pick it up at lunch. Just put it anywhere. You were carrying a box of centuries-old documents and coffee at the same time? Oof, yeah, sorry. Did they make it out okay? Looks like there's just a coffee stain on the outside. Documents are intact. Thanks, I was about to have a heart attack. Heart, I do know how to spell heart. I think I actually know what these documents are. The handwriting looks familiar. Don't pick up yet. Give me a few hours. Aye, aye, Captain. I don't know why I said that. All right, then we continue here. Nothing on the back of that one. Hey, it's me. Let's stick to personal numbers on this. Confirm receipt. Confirmed. Wow, I didn't know you had my number. What did you find? I didn't. Got it from Mandy. We should keep this off the books. I don't think we're supposed to know about this box. See attachment. The handwriting matches. It says, the Emerald Flame exhibit, which opened in February, focuses on the exploits of a 15th century alchemist named Marketa, who, like many other alchemists of the time, sought to create the elixir of life. Her research was seemingly funded by a powerful figure in the church who intended to consume the elixir himself. As she conducted her research, she grew increasingly disenchanted with her patron, believing his quest for immortality to be incompatible with the morals he taught. What's fascinating about the exhibit is the surprising recipient of Marketa's letters, not her ecclesiastical patron, but his illegitimate daughter Hannah. The nature of the relationship between the 2 women is unknown, but their correspondence is as tender as it is sly. letters studded with symbols and codes indicating some secret understanding between them. However, the correspondence abruptly ends when Hannah severs all contact, following her father's abrupt death. Our understanding is that Markéta had begun to stall for time, explained Museum Director Graham Pontnick. When her patron summoned her, likely not very gently, she was forced to prepare the elixir in front of him. He is believed to have died almost immediately after Hannah blamed Markéta for his death. Wow, so these are Hannah and Markéta's documents? That's really cool, but why can't we tell anyone? Did you read the paper our esteemed employer wrote back then about how a female alchemist of the period could never have been taken seriously? Oh, that article. Yikes. I'm guessing it's not an accident this part of the story got lost in the archives. So what do? This is historic. We can't just put it back in hiding. Slow down. There's not enough here for publication yet. We'll have to keep digging. In the meantime, I'm putting these documents in order. I'll group them into envelopes. For the best analysis, we should examine them in numeric order. I'll send you the copies for analysis. Why can't I take the originals and you keep the copies? Not a chance, Coffee Hands. Coffee Hands? All right, so we've got some people here that are sort of looking into the story behind these things, and we do now have a reason that everything has been sort of organized into these folders, which is cool. I always love it when thematic ties into mechanics. So let's take a look at the first envelope. I'm not digging deep because I don't want to give away too much, but I just want to show what's happening here. This is the hint system that was mentioned before. I'm not going to pull far, but you can see there is a sort of list of bubbles on there, just like the text thread that you just saw me read through. That does give hints and ultimately the solution to the puzzle in this sort of folder. But again, I'm using all of these components that I've already shown you to solve some kind of puzzle. So here we go, a new letter to M, from Hannah now, I'm guessing, which says, M, one day soon I will tell you of these last months, of my departure from the Abbey in the dead of night, of my escape from the city of my birth, hidden under the blankets of a merchant's cart. I will tell you of that first night, lying awake in my tent, bruised and aching from travel, how the silence sang and the darkness held forth, every sensation turned heightened and holy. And I will tell you how the following morning, with trembling hands, I at last removed the wimple that has kept me safe from the eyes of men, for no longer could I invoke the protection of the church. I will tell you of my first drink from a clear stream, of the goat's meat we seared over an open fire, of the calluses that hardened my heels and the mud that soaked my skirts. I will describe the merchant's growing respect as I studied his native tongue, practicing faithfully so that I might barter for passage, and of his manservant's corresponding respect as I lifted the heavy bolts of cloth he struggled to carry. I will tell you of the smell of the trading ports of Lubeck, the size of the ship's billowing masts, the way my heart sang even as I parted from my companions. I will tell you of the sailors' laughter as I retched over a roiling sea. Then, too, of their rough paternal approval as they instructed me in knot tying, my fingers following theirs on salt-swollen ropes. I will tell you about the goodness I have encountered in this world, for it has changed me, Markéta, more so than the hardening of my palms and the coarsening of my skin. But these things should not be conveyed by letter. I have crossed the Baltic Sea now. My journey is almost over. Soon I will reach Lake Vättern, and in the event that you have received my note, I will find you waiting for me. If not, I will find your workshop, for I am poor and humble, O great alchemist, and permitted to know the way. Then I will say to you all that I wish, and at last all the intervening years between us will fall away. M. Strange to think on my confidence only a few days ago, for I was certain then of your heart, certain that despite the years that divided us, you thought of me as often as I thought of you. I half believed that you could sense my return as the steed senses the approaching storm, that you would be waiting for me, arms outstretched. Now I sit at the doorstep of your workshop, humbled. The door is locked. The place is long abandoned. The farm folks say you have been missing for months. You told them nothing before you disappeared, left no instruction or letter. Though you lived alongside them for years, they could scarcely say whether you had a family, whether you'd been married, whether you had loved. You were an enigma and allowed few into your confidence. I think of the openness of your face, the ease of your laughter, and I half wonder if I had found the correct alchemist after all. Yet I can see your craftsmanship in this place. Tracing my fingers along the door's engraved tiles, I see that they can be rearranged. All but the center tile can be moved. It is a door that could only have been crafted by you, a threshold locked by art. Is it foolishness to think that you designed this for me? And yet I feel I have a sense of how to open it, a methodical reordering. I stand at the brink of understanding, of you, of your ways, of where you have gone. I must open the door and pass through. All right, so I am going to stop there, but it's clear now that that door is referencing this because they're talking about tiles aside from the center that can be rearranged and moved around to solve some kind of puzzle. And that will be the first thing that I do off camera as I play through this adventure. And that's basically all I'm going to show you because I don't want to spoil anything else, but I hope that you've gotten a sort of a glimpse of what this is going to be about, and I will talk to you a whole lot more about my experiences after I have played through everything else. So that's all I've got to show you here. Moving back up top, and you'll be seeing from me after I've played through with my thoughts on the experience. Welcome back. I hope that that overview was helpful for you, and I hope that I didn't spoil too much for you because, as always, the fun of these games is slowly learning and exploring the narrative and discovering the puzzles and working your way through the puzzles, and I want that experience to still be there for you. I have to say that PostCurious again continues their trend of these really amazing narrative, heavy narrative focused escape room in a box games. I tend to be a big fan of these kind of escape room style puzzles, very logical, putting pieces together to figure out things, and they continue to impress me with the puzzles they're putting out. But more importantly, PostCurious does more than any other escape room that I've played at least, bring the narrative and thread the narrative, connect the narrative directly to the puzzle so that the things that you're solving are actually being solved for some reason, and this one continues to do that as well. This is the first sort of sequel that they've done to a previous game. I have played through the Emerald Flame, and I did enjoy the Emerald Flame, and I remembered pieces of it, but I didn't remember enough of it to say exactly how well this continues on from that one. Although I do remember a sort of split choose your own adventure kind of ending on that one, so maybe one of those has now become sort of canon for the story. I can't remember if that was the thing that I did or that was the historical story, but anyway, this tells this historical story of some of the characters from the previous game and focusing first on the narrative because I continue to enjoy the stories being told in this game. The narrative in this box is beautiful. This is very much a sort of tale of a relationship between two people and sort of the struggles in their relationship, both tied to things that have happened in the past, means in the previous game, as well as things that have happened since that point. And it really does tie this sort of story of these two people together as they sort of traveled through history, because these are sort of historical figures that are being discussed by somebody else in this game. And then a third figure sort of gets involved in that sort of relationship story as well. Me saying it this way doesn't make it sound like it should, but it's a very beautifully, wonderfully written, very emotional story that I appreciated and I really did enjoy reading through. And it was interesting the way it was presented, as a lot of their games are, sort of by other narrators, sort of referring back to these historical documents that were telling this story. And it really did work for me and I really enjoyed it quite a bit. Now the puzzles as well in this game, there are 4 envelopes with a variety of different puzzles. I'm not spoiling any of them, but I continue to enjoy the sort of differentiation and the different variety of styles of puzzles that come out of these boxes. A lot of them are very visual heavy, but visual heavy then in a sort of logical code-breaking cipher kind of way. There's lots of weird symbols that you have to interpret to make words. There's lots of sort of physical things you need to put together to make words. Everything is ultimately sort of word-based because you are sort of looking for a keyword or phrase for each of the puzzles as a solution. But it's sort of tackled in a variety of different ways, either sort of using direct cipher translation kind of stuff, building out puzzles that sort of physically show things, or building out puzzles that then have to sort of be somehow logically solved, or some kind of path needs to be followed to physically solve things. And anyway, I'm a fan of the puzzles in these games because it doesn't ever make me feel stupid in that I'm not solving the puzzle because I can't physically do what I'm supposed to do. Instead, these are the kind of puzzles that sort of stress me to think about the things that I'm given in a variety of different ways. But then once I've sort of figured out what that thing is, then solving the puzzle becomes a treat, right? It doesn't solve itself, but it feels very good as I'm almost peeling back the layers or moving from this point to this point to this point to this point to solve those puzzles. And the way that that's done is very rewarding. because it does pull in a hint system, and I'll talk more about the hint system later because they've tried something new with this box that I do want to come back to. But the hint system continues, as in their previous games, to sort of walk you through things. It doesn't give you answers. It says, well, you should try this. And then the next step it says, well, if you tried that, this happens. And then it says, you should try this. And then it says, well, if you tried this, this happens. So it does really sort of push you and then give you a carrot, then push you and then give you a carrot, and sort of walk you through step by step, little by little, but also pushing you to think before giving you answers. And that's great because anytime I'm sort of stuck, I can look at one of those and it says, try thinking about the puzzle from this angle. And then once it clicks in my head, then the rest of the puzzle sort of unfolds because this connects to this, connects to this, connects to this. And I really do appreciate that. And I really do love the way that the puzzles work in this game. And without spoiling anything, there is a big physical puzzle at the end, which is somewhat common, not common, but often happens in many of their sort of bigger box games like this one is. And I have to say the physical puzzle in this game was my favorite of all of those sort of big physical puzzles I've played in any of their games. Just the way that it works, the way that it was physically built, the way that it was sort of a multi-leveled thing that I had to figure out one thing to then figure out something else really felt good, and it really felt fun manipulating all of the physical components that I needed to manipulate in order to solve that puzzle. So big fan of that one. Compared to other physical puzzles that they've had in some of their other games, where it almost felt like I solved some other kind of riddly thing, and then from that answer I just sort of set something and it opened, or I set something and it opened in a different way. This one had more of the actual puzzle be inside the puzzle itself, and again, the way that it all worked together and the interconnectedness of everything was a lot of fun to play through. So overall, the narrative and the puzzles in this game, I really, really did enjoy again, and I continue to be a fan of this company. But I do want to put something out there. This is the first time, at least in my knowledge, that they've sort of gone completely offline with everything. It used to be in all of their other games that the hint system was online, and then the other games also generally had some kind of interaction online. What that means is sometimes in some of their games, once you solved the puzzle, you had to sort of send an email to an email address saying, hey, this is what I figured out. And then they'd email you back saying, great, try this, or do this next, or open this next, or hey, I sent you another thing, check it out. Or Morrison Game Factory had this sort of online computer system that you were actually like chatting with as you were playing that did things, and then you actually went into settings and actually did things inside the online system. That one was quite heavily online. And I enjoyed that quite a bit as well. But this online component for me really was an interesting way that I was almost directly communicating with the game. And this one now has gone completely offline, which means it's cut that off for better and for worse. And let me explain, because I think this is both a good thing and a not so great thing at the same time. The good here is that, well, you don't need an internet connection. You don't need anything online. You don't need anything but this box. You open this box and you can play regardless where you are. You could be camping out in the middle of nowhere and you could still play through this box, and you'd have a wonderful experience doing so. But having removed that online component, I think you miss out on a few things. And the first thing is that connection with the story, or with the people in the story. Now, this one is presented in a series of folders, and each of these folders presents some kind of historical document, but then also presents sort of a screen capture of an online sort of text exchange between two people. And at the beginning, I didn't really understand the connection. It didn't really make sense to me how these things that I was holding and interacting connected with those people. Now, granted, I don't want to spoil anything, but sort of something that happens towards the very end of the narrative, of that narrative, of those two people texting, then sort of retconned what was happening. Not retconned, but sort of reconnected back to the physicality of what I was holding. And then it was like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's why I'm holding these things. And that makes sense. And there was even a little funny chuckle at the end that sort of connected to that. So it did sort of bring me back in at the end. It did sort of connect me back to that physical world at the end. But in the beginning, it was kind of like, why do I have these folders? Why do I have these printout of these sort of chat transcripts? And it didn't really pull me into the physical world like many of the previous games did. Another thing that sort of bummed me out about the physicality, or the non-online thing, is the hint system and the solution system. Because it used to be in the old games, when you solved the puzzle, you could go onto the website and type in a word and hit go, and it would say, yes, that's correct, or no, that's not correct. And just by seeing, no, that's not correct, that means that I could try again until I figured out what the thing was that I was supposed to have figured out to solve that puzzle. This game doesn't give that to you because everything is physical. I do appreciate, though, how the hint system here is thematically tied in that the hint system is one of these sort of chat transcripts with people going back and forth, sort of discussing the solving of the puzzle. And that was a lot of fun to read, even when I'd already solved the puzzle, to sort of read the narrative of these two people working together to solve the puzzle that I had just solved. And it still works just like the online system did, sort of giving me a little push and then a little bit of answer, and then a little push and then a little bit of answer. So it felt very similar to the online hint system, but the problem was when I solved the puzzle, the only way to know if I got it right was to go to the end of that transcript and read the last line, and it would give me the answer to the puzzle. Problem is, if I didn't get it right, well, now I have the correct answer. It doesn't necessarily mean that I know how to solve it if I just jumped to the end and read the answer. I could still try and figure out how to get there, but it did mean I sort of had one real chance to solve the puzzle, and if I didn't get it, it was kind of spoiled for me, and that made me a little bit sad. Now, that said, it didn't really happen. It's just something that could have happened, and I think it did kind of half happen one time while I was playing. I don't remember exactly, and I apologize for that. But most of the time, by the time that I figured out what I was supposed to do, as I said, things sort of fell into place, and the sort of logical chain led to what had to be the right answer, but not necessarily, and that does make me a little sad. So on one hand, I do like that I don't need a connection to the internet. I don't need any kind of research from other things. Everything I need to do and everything I need to know and all of the things that I'm playing are inside the box. But on the other hand, I do lose a little bit of the functionality and the sort of direct connection to the game because of the physical components. Now, does that mean I wish they'd never do this again? Not necessarily. But I do think that this is the sort of first attempt at something, and it could be tweaked in just a little way, or it could be that maybe just some small point was optionally online, like the solution checker or something could optionally be online just so that somebody doesn't have to read through that thing in order to check the solutions. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, and I'm not going to condemn this game because they've tried something new, because I appreciate everything else that was done in this game, and I still love the story, and I still love the puzzles, and I still give this one some huge thumbs up. Big fan of this. If you're a fan of any other PostCurious games, definitely check this one out because it continues the trend of what they've been doing for years now. If you're worried that you didn't play the Emerald Flame because it is the previous game to this narratively, don't, because you don't really need to know anything from that to experience this. That said, if you are interested in playing that, because that's out already and this one's not, definitely check that one out and then do this, and you will get some more out of the story in this. But again, it doesn't impact the puzzle solving or anything else in any kind of way. So you're not missing out, but you will get sort of more out of the experience if you've read through that or played through that story before playing through this story. So it is fun to see some of this sequel stuff happening. And from what I understand, they may have some more kind of sequel ideas coming soon. But again, big applause on the puzzle design, big applause on the narrative. I'm very excited to see more from this company. Again, this is hitting Kickstarter. This is a preview video. Definitely check the description down below for the link to the Kickstarter campaign if this seems like something you'd be interested in. That's basically all I have to say about this game. As always, if you did enjoy this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon below, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks.